we're getting ready to mix the base coat. And so all you need to do is pick up your part B that you've already separated and pour it right out into the part A. And you're gonna wanna mix that. Now, again, we're mixing it with a stir stick, but you're gonna probably wanna drill if you have one. You're gonna get a pretty bad forearm pump from this because it's so much epoxy for the base coat, but the highlights are easy with stir sticks. But it has to be mixed really well on low speeds, scraping the sides and the bottom a lot. What I'm doing here is I'm just scraping the bottom of the mixing container and I'm scraping the sides of the mixing container, trying to get the part B throughout the entire mixture. If you end up pouring out a base coat or a highlight without it being mixed fully, then there'll be some part A that won't get hard. It's a bad deal. You're gonna wanna mix this, if you're doing it by hand, for probably 3 to 4 minutes. If you're doing it with a mixing paddle on a drill on low RPM, you're gonna probably do it for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. But even if you use a drill, make sure you grab a stir stick and scrape the sides and bottom really well. Now that you've got your base coat mixed up, you'll want to get it out on the counter immediately. Don't leave any of it in the bucket unless you don't need it. Then you can leave a little bit in the bucket, but you'll see you actually will use some extra material for the edges after the highlights are on. We're just testing the surface to see how tacky it is, to see if it's ready to go. The surface can be a little bit tacky. We're just gonna pour it out evenly in like big beads all over the counter, everywhere. I'm trying to get it even so I don't put all of it on half of the counter and have none left over for the other side of the counter. You're gonna want your helper, or whoever's helping you, to just start spreading it out, or you can start spreading it out. And that's all you're doing, is just that. You're spreading it out, trying to get it evenly. It's a foam roller. We're using a 6-inch foam roller that's in part of that shopping list that you're gonna need to pick up a few things. And you're not pressing down hard. You're just rolling over the epoxy. It's kind of spreading out itself. You're not pushing hard. It's not like a squeegee action where you're pulling all of the epoxy. You're just rolling over it very gently to smooth it all out all over the surface. Go one way and then go back the other direction. And don't do the edges quite yet. Just leave a little bead, a little pile on all the edges. That's what I'm doing right here. I'm going back with a little bit extra material, and I'm just leaving a bead of epoxy on that top edge of the counter, just allowing it to run off if it wants to. Because in a minute, we're gonna push it all off the face of that counter so that it coats that face really well. And make sure you have everything plastic off. It's not the cleanest process, but it's probably one of the funnest and easiest you can do to resurface your countertop. See, I still have a little bit left in the container, just a little bit. I'm gonna leave that in the container. And by me leaving it in the container, it's gonna set up a lot faster than the stuff that I poured out on the counter. We want it to start setting up just a little bit and start getting tacky so that we can use it for the faces, because it covers the faces a lot easier after it sets up just a little bit. He's just rolling it out evenly all over the counter. You'll notice that it's starting to drip off the edge. That doesn't matter, just let it drip. He's still just rolling it out evenly, and he's leaving a little bit of material on all the edges. See how he's pushing it around? Now he's starting to push it off all the edges. Once you're done with the top and you have it all leveled out fairly well on the whole counter, just go along and begin to push it off all the edges and allow it to coat all the edges. This countertop has a 90-degree edge on the top, and we always recommend that you router that top edge. Give it a little bit of a round edge, even a quarter round. You can do it with a router, a small 4-inch concrete cup wheel will even grind that top edge really well. Even a sander, if you want to just round that edge with a sander, you can do it that way. But it allows that epoxy to round over that edge and coat a little bit better. That top edge has been problematic for some people, and so we just recommend that you round that if you can. And if you have way too much, just do what we're doing. Put it back in the bucket, because if you feel like you need more on a different counter, you didn't put enough, put some in the bucket, pour it back out. You have about 15 to 20 minutes to get done with this process. See, he's just pushing off some excess epoxy. And you're gonna wanna barely roll over the face so that it coats. Not pushing hard, just rolling over the face just like you would on the top. And this product is self-leveling, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It will level out. Once you have the base coat on the entire counter, start mixing up the highlight. You'll want to get the highlight into the base coat immediately, because remember, the base coat's already starting to set up. So you don't want to wait too long. Start mixing your highlight immediately after your base coat is down.